Good afternoon. 2 inches. That was the first thought that came to my mind when I heard about the shootings that happened at the Butler Farm show. If the path of that bullet would have been 2 inches different, I don't even want to imagine what the results would be. And since then, I've learned that I was generous by saying 2 inches. People who are in the know say it was only a fraction of an inch that spared Donald Trump's life. So I've joined virtually everyone, Republican and Democrat, in saying I am so grateful that the tragedy on Saturday was not worse. But when I say I am grateful, that leads to the question, to whom am I grateful? Am I grateful to God? Many people, including Donald Trump himself in his speech last night, say that God saved his life. Is that true? Did God save Donald Trump from an assassin's bullet? Deists, who, by the way, include many of our nation's founders, such as Thomas Jefferson, deists would say, no, God didn't save Donald Trump, because they believe in a God who created the world, but once the world got started, then left the world to its own devices. So whether someone gets shot or not, according to deists, depends simply on how events unfold in the world, because God has nothing to do with it. That's what deists believe. But theists, and by the way, this can be so confusing because those names sound so similar, theists, like us Christians, would disagree. As Christians, we believe that God is intimately involved in every aspect in this world that he created. We believe that each moment is a miracle as God sustains and guides the course of human history. And this, by the way, is something we Presbyterians affirm even more strongly than many other Christians. We believe in providence, the understanding that God guides and is in control of all things, even the most trivial things. After all, Jesus once said, "Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? Yet not one of them will fall to the ground outside your Father's care." So the simple answer to our question is yes. If God does control all things, then he was in control of Saturday's events. If God watches over the flight of every sparrow, then he is certainly in control of the path of a bullet. So we can say it was God's will for Trump not to be killed. But if we say that God is in control of what happened on Saturday, that means not only did God spare Trump's life, we are also saying that God was in control of the bullet that killed Corey Comperatore. And we're saying it today as his family is mourning their loss at his funeral. Did God want him to die? Did God want those 2 other gentlemen to be severely injured? Did God want the thousands of people who attended the rally to be traumatized? Did God want the nation and the world to be horrified by what happened? The answer to the question, did God save Donald Trump, now becomes more complex, because it leads to other questions. If God did save Donald Trump, why didn't he save the other people? Why didn't God prevent this tragedy from ever unfolding in the first place? We have to ask these questions because we can't have it both ways. We can not say only that God does the good things if he's in control, and then say that God is not in control of the bad things that happens. If he's in control of one, he's in control of it all. Now, having said all this, there is one thing that Donald Trump said in his speech last night that convinces me that God truly was at work in his life. Trump said that as he went down to the ground and as the Secret Service agents covered him, he felt serene. He felt at peace. Now, you can't rely on emotions to guide us. As I said in my last devotion, our emotions can go in all sorts of directions. But in general, when God is at work, we can have a sense of peace and clarity even in times of difficulty and tragedy. The fact that Trump felt peace at a moment when everyone else was feeling shock and horror, that suggests to me that the hand of God was at work. No, for me, the real question is not, did God save Donald Trump? For me, the real question is, what can we learn from this experience? What is God teaching us through what he did on Saturday? How can this change who we are and what we do? What can Trump himself learn from this experience? How does God want this experience to change him? But it's not just for Donald Trump. What can Republicans learn from this experience? How can Democrats change because of this? What can Joe Biden learn from what happened on Saturday? What can we all as Americans learn? What can we as Christians take away from what happened on Saturday? How can it change us? What can God teach us through it? In my next devotion, I'm going to suggest one thing that we can learn from what happened on Saturday. But at the very least, can we learn one thing? Can we learn that we are not in control of our own lives? Can we learn that we must look to God to lead us and to guide us? Can we set aside our own agendas and all the squabbling that we make? Can we seek the peace that comes from being under God's care? Would you pray with me, please? Lord, as we are grateful for your mercy in some situations, we also come to you with our perplexity over why you do not show mercy for others and why we do not see your loving care in other situations. We do believe, God, that you are in control. Help that belief guide us and shape us. And in particular, may the events at the Butler Farm Show this past Saturday help to guide us and lead us to live life differently. Amen. Thanks for joining me. We'll talk again later.